I've glanced at them, yeah, and most of them I'm pretty comfortable talking about. Some of the specific ones, I guess, for some ones I may have to think a bit about.
Oh, of
But for
course.
the general ones, definitely I can talk about.
Okay, good. I was a little worried saying, I mean, they are pretty basic questions and like a lot. Well, sorry, the first set are pretty basic, and I mean, I was kind of worried that you would assume that we're just simple-minded folks, but
No,
um,
no, I just look at it having a conversation. So the
oh,
confidence
absolutely.
talk.
Okay, here, let me just pull them up to make sure I have them in front of me. Okay, so like the entire project is essentially a documentary for first-year students in our program to get a jump start on how to focus on like how to build a brand, how to know what a brand is itself, because we only learned really till we didn't learn anything about till about the third year, so it's kind of a uh, I don't know, a surprise for us, I guess. So we're trying to help them out and do something special for them in like an innovative way, not just a PowerPoint or anything like that. So let's just jump right into it. So from your point of view, what exactly is a brand?
Um, I think the best way to think about brand is it's a symbol, basically, or a set of symbols that represents the meaning, the essence of the brand, the promise to consumers, if you will. And so the promise can be functional in terms of what the product does, but also it's emotional in terms of the inner sorts of desires and states that are satisfied through the consumption of the product.
Okay, perfect.
So it's a range of functions. So besides this sort of like the immediate issue of identifying the product, like who makes this thing and who's responsible for it, usually the brand promise goes well beyond that.
Okay,
So it suggests all kinds of other meanings.
okay. But I try and become, like you mentioned, like the emotional aspect of it, the touch points. How do you think a brand manages to gather consumers' attention?
They can gather attention through anything and everything that they do, pretty much. They can do it in loud, obnoxious ways by shouting and big billboards and loud ads, but they also do it actually often more effectively by whispering and doing it in subtle ways that consumers aren't necessarily aware of. And so I guess if you go sort of like the traditional way is just advertising, more is better. So we spend our way to get in consumers' way and sort of inject ourselves in their lives so they can't but not ignore us. So
That's it.
that's sort of one traditional way of just grabbing attention, but it's everything in it. So it could be even just your presence at the shelf, product, its packaging, how it's displayed, the merchandising of the product, which level of the shelf the product's on matters. Next to how much shelf space it gets. It's also the people. People are a huge part of um, creating impressions for products and also service experiences. And so, what are the salespeople like? Are they dressed well? Are they in uniforms? Are they articulate? Or are they incompetent? Those are also going to communicate very important meanings for the brand. Your price also says a lot about what kind of brand you are in terms of who you're like or who you're not like. And so, are you a discount brand? Are you cheap? Or are you some sort of premium elitist type of offering? And even the stores matter. And so, they end up buying products, but they choose stores where they're going to buy them. And the type of store, the tier of store, is it on the third floor of the Rio Center, or the basement of the Rio Center? That also is a pretty firm signal in terms of what consumers are getting into and what they're seeking.
Okay, perfect. Just a quick question. Can you actually see me right now? Just to make sure.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you there.
Sorry, can you actually see me right now? I'm just making sure that this is
No, I
going.
can't see. All
Oh,
I see is like a little shadow of a guy.
oh, okay.
Oh, there you are.
There we
Now
go.
I see
Hi.
you. I was trying to move my figure around so I wouldn't be looking at the corner. I look cross-eyed here. I put
Oh,
it to the left. I'm looking that way.
yeah. It's all. I'm still getting used to it. I mean, I interviewed Roy Sutherland from England a while back, and it was just the most ridiculously difficult thing to do. Um,
I'll try not to be staring off in the corner, but it's just natural to sort of look at.
oh, don't worry about it. It's completely fine. Um, Okay, so going back to brand, when you said that a brand can do anything to stay in our minds, from anything from like the whispers to being loud to obnoxious, what should a brand never do?
What should they never do?
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of the flip side of what it do. So at the core, if you look at the brand as being a promise of sorts, you got to fulfill your promise. And so the last thing you should do is promise something that you're not. So if you shout out to the world you're the best ever, well, you bloody well better be.
Yeah.
Likewise, if you say that you're reliable, you'd better be. A friendly, approachable brand, well, certainly your salespeople or your service staff have to sort of live that brand promise. They can't drop the ball, otherwise you come off as being fraudulent. You're not authentic. You're not trustworthy. And so, it's not just talking the talk. And for a long time, people thought that was enough. It's enough to go out there and sort of like say you're bigger, better, stronger, faster. But now, especially in the age of the internet, there's so much transparency out there, and consumers have this power to communicate with each other. It's got to be authentic. It's got to be backed up.
Speaking of consumers talking to each other, when a brand speaks to a client itself, or sorry, well, not to a client, but to a consumer, do you think that will evolve in the next few years, or is it pretty much the level it's going to be at for the rest of the, style of the internet that it is now?
Yeah, I think, either you look at it as an evolution, it's going to continue to evolve, but some would argue that the revolution's already happened, and the companies some of them are still just getting clued in here. The old school thinking about branding was basically, we are what we say we are, and that was it. It ended whenever you put the messages out and your brand, but what you said you were. But more and more we find that consumers want to be a part of that conversation, and not only do they sort of react to what you're saying, they'll often initiate their own conversations instead of talk about what you are and what you're not. And so consumers actually create a meaning, and that's outside of the realm of control that most brand managers are sort of like, they're used to thinking they're in control of everything, but that's actually a fallacy. It's a myth. They can certainly help initiate the meanings that are going to be discussed, like we're the macho brand, or we're the youthful brand, or we're the hip brand. But ultimately, consumers are the one who are going to say, no, you're for old people, and you don't really relate to us. You're not using the right language, and you're not for us. You're not by us, in FUBU's case, perhaps. And so the truth comes out eventually, and you just have to have that authenticity. You got to be, to that own brand, be true. You got to be comfortable with who you are, and get that across and live that.
Yeah. For major corporations, do you think that brand identity is more difficult to showcase, or is it actually easier?
It's challenging for anybody. I think it's probably easiest for the lone entrepreneur, because a lot of time the lone entrepreneur, the company is the embodiment of him or herself, and so they just got to keep on doing what they're doing and being who they are. But as soon as you stop sort of selling to your friends or off the cart, and you start having to like merchandise your product or get other people to be your sales person, it sort of changes the whole mix. And so it's a big challenge to try to sort of take it and scale it up. And so I think it's a bigger challenge for big companies. On the other hand, big companies also have big budgets, and so they can put more money into planning this and making sure that there's consistency in the delivery of that. An example would be Starbucks. It doesn't matter where you go in the planet. You go into Starbucks, they all kind of look the same and smell the same and feel the same, and the menu's kind of the same. Well, that's actually all right, because that's what people like about Starbucks. They want, those that seek the Starbucks experience want the exact same thing, much no matter where they go. Otherwise, they go and support some indie coffee shop, if that still exists. I'm not even sure if they do anymore. They're looking for that consistency, and so big corporate can certainly make that happen. And but also companies have, or customers, I should say, have bigger expectations. It's like if you're gonna be a big shot, well, you better sort of walk the walk. If it's fair trade, it better be fair trade. Or if you're going to be selling us these sneakers, which are supposedly world class, it better not be made with child labor or poor work conditions, right? So, in some respects, the big companies have been major pioneers in these areas, but they've also been put under the microscope. Certainly, anytime there's like a G8 summit or something down with globalization, it's sort of the mantra of the activists. Well, I think the big companies have been pretty responsive to some of that grassroots sort of movement. And even companies like Walmart, it's like, for much as Walmart gets vilified, they're the ones that can make a big impact. So they actually went out and hired some of their biggest environmental critics, basically, to say, like, what can we do with this place to make a big difference? And so we have all the water that's falling on our rooftops. What can we do with this water? Can we store it, for example, use the gray water, flush our toilets with it? So I think we're seeing the big companies embrace a lot of these sort of ethical brand meetings, I guess. But ultimately, it's got to come from the employees. There's no such thing as like just corporations that exist on their own. They are the people that work for them. And so as soon as the key have a conscience and articulate it, you'll find that companies follow suit.
Speaking of big corporations and being transparent, you know about the McDonald's honesty campaign, the making the videos online about everything from the way they're doing advertising with the fake food to what's in their products to why the cashier is a very not nice person. Everything from that, every question is answered with the video. Do you think that could actually damage a company based on being too transparent? For example, the advertising portion alone, the fake burgers.
There's sort of the cynic's answer, and then there's the more optimistic answer to this. Yeah. And there's sort of the pragmatist, I guess, is somewhere in the middle. So I'll start with being a pragmatist. And I guess the pragmatist says, you know what, if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it for us. And so McDonald's has certainly been sort of caught us before. And so the classic movie where the guy went out and ate a bazillion hamburgers and put on all the weight really opened a lot of consumers' eyes. And it's not like McDonald's doesn't know this. They know that there's not exactly health food that they're selling. It's convenient food and it's satisfying food, and it sort of like fills the craving. And that's just is what it is, basically. And I think the truth of the matter is that what people discovered is that, well, if you make it too much of a habit and you have that craving on a daily basis, there's going to be some major health consequences. And so I think McDonald's was on the radar already. But now they know that, look, maybe it's better if we initiate this dialogue and tell people maybe this is like good for special occasions, or maybe you got to balance your diet with some exercise, or maybe you just have to sort of like not be so naive. I saw one of the videos the other day, and it's the first time I was exposed to their honesty campaign. And it was basically, I guess, the marketing officer based in Toronto saying, look, this is a picture of a Big Mac. Well, this is like what it looks like in the store, and this is what it looks like in the ad. Let me tell you why this happens and why they're not exactly the same. And I honestly thought it was extremely honest. It's like I was looking for something to complain about. It's not my favorite organization in the world. I'm not into fast food. Really, I need to sit down and slowly conversation. And so I was actually delighted. They sort of pulled back the curtain and said, look, this is what's going on. This is like Wizard of Oz. It's just like a little guy back here pulling all these levers. This is why it's happening. And so, yeah, of course, when you have a studio, they're able to do things, and they're able to make the food look beautiful. And in a way, it is an isolated version of the Big Mac. Nobody truly gets that. I would be interested in knowing how many people think that's the case anyways. I think most people realize as soon as you put it in a little styrofoam container, it gets all sweaty and it shrinks. It's just, duh. It's like experience tells you that, but it's kind of nice to think that sort of like just walk people through those steps. And it's like, in a way, it's good because then we have a savvier bunch of consumers, but also we have companies that know they're being watched and act with more integrity, act with more transparency, and I think that's good for everybody.
So you think it'll set a precedent for other companies to become more transparent than they are, like Wendy's or even different companies like Nike and Apple?
Yeah, you could argue that they're setting a precedent, but I think there's a lot of companies that have had that precedent sort of established already, and so they tend to be more like the boutique shops or the certain pioneers that like say, look, they're the first ones that said fair trade coffee. Now everybody sells fair trade coffee. You can't buy unfair coffee. I'm looking for it myself. Maybe you save a few bucks, but that's irony. Okay. But there are people that had to be the pioneers in terms of saying, look, we want local food, for example, or we wanted. I messed up my screen here, so I'm trying to figure out what I did.
No worries. Did you click off the screen? Off the.
I pressed full screen, but I disappeared. But actually, it's probably a good thing. Now I can't see myself. I'm staring at myself, saying, "What am I doing here?"
That's okay.
And so, Yeah, it's a case of anything. In a way, we're in this wonderful world where somebody does something wonderful. Eventually, it's going to get emulated by somebody else. And so, in a way, it's almost like the perfect laboratory. We're always improving things, making things better. And so, you could argue that McDonald's is making a step forward here that's putting integrity and transparency and putting that on the radar. But wouldn't it be wonderful if we had more companies doing that? Absolutely. Now, I'm not sure if every consumer is interested in sitting down at their computer and checking this out or ridiculing it or engaging in a dialogue, but it's better for McDonald's or the company to be at least the pioneer, the one that initiates the conversation, because then they participate in it as opposed to somebody creating an I hate McDonald's website. Here are their lies website, and perhaps not having full information. And isn't it nice to? Sorry about the buzz there. They're doing construction there.
It's okay. But saying that someone else making an I hate website, I hate McDonald's website or equivalent of that, wouldn't the Super Size Me video kind of be the catalyst for McDonald's? Because as soon as Morgan Spurlock came out with that, it was all the healthy salads coming out and the wraps and the yogurts all started flooding every McDonald's, and then this happened. It wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it's vilify McDonald's, and that's what often the protesters do and the activists do. But I think sometimes it'd be nice just to hold our mirror up to ourselves and look at ourselves as consumers. It's like, why do we really go to McDonald's? Is we like the fries, and we know they're cooked in grease or they're cooked in fat. That's just why we're there. We're not there for a healthy salad now. If they have it on the menu, then maybe once or twice every time we go there, every time we go there, we can eat something and have a guilt-free meal or have something that takes the tinge of guilt off there, because look, I'm eating something green, so I could feel better eating this greasy burger here. But let's not kid ourselves. It's like, ultimately, nobody's putting a gun to consumers' heads saying you have to eat there or not, and they're not the ones forcing people to order the milkshake or not. People, they can get a healthy choice or healthier choice there now if they choose to. I don't know how many sort of omnivores are going there just eating the healthy food options. There might be somebody that's dragged there reluctantly eating. There might be some people that are sort of eating a bit of both. Now there's probably others that are just like, honestly, the people that go to McDonald's, it's like affect their bottom line. They're people that are somewhere between your age and my age, who are like the working class guys that drive trucks, that work for a living, that use their bodies. It's like they're the ones that are doing the gardening, they're the ones doing the drywall, they're the ones doing the dirty work. They're the guys that are like 50,000 calories a day because their work demands it, basically, and they need calories. And they go in there, they order 2 burgers and 2 orders of fries and a super big gulp of a drink because their bodies can often burn it off. The rest of us who are sitting at a desk, we can't really afford to sort of keep up with it. Again, it's a lifestyle choice, and that's one of many product offerings people can choose.
Okay. Do you remember the Chevy Tahoe ads from about, I think it's about a year ago, where Chevrolet asked the consumers to make their own ads, their own copy inside? I think as a website, we can actually just write whatever you wanted about the car, be as honest as you want, and then they completely screwed it up because...
Yeah, they did, and I do talk about this in my class, in my marketing lecture. I sort of have it in my Hall of Fame, Hall of Shame, I guess, for viral marketing. And again, it's like, I understand what Chevrolet was trying to do, and on one hand, they deserve some kudos. It's like, look, the truth of the matter is, when it comes to automobiles, you do have fanatics. People love their Fords, the people love their Chevys, the people love their Hondas, and it's nice to give them a forum to talk about their love. But I think that what sort of they missed out on was not everybody wants to sing happy praises. In fact, there's a whole subculture of people that all they want to do is subvert and sort of like expose brands, and it's their hobby, basically. And so what they weren't counting on was people coming and vilifying the whole product category of SUVs as being like the scourge of the planet and the carbon imprint. And what they did is they lampooned the brand, and there were all these that sort of showed the shame, the dark side of the product. And so what they ended up doing was basically creating an incentive to people to talk badly or poorly about them and their particular brand. I don't think that was part of it wasn't on the marketing brief initially. I'm sure somebody's if somebody's head didn't roll, certainly they got called whenever the big wigs got together, saying, "Look, what on earth are you doing here? You're trying to kill us. It's better to not advertise, maybe, than to have this come out." And so I think it was a learning curve for them. I think anytime you're a leader, you're a pioneer, you're trying to do something, be the first big company to really embrace this, there's going to be some speed bumps. And I'm sure they learned some lessons, and I'm sure they're not so loosey-goosey about letting everybody participate, or maybe I don't know what they're doing, honestly, but there's certainly some follow-up was required in that particular case.
Yeah, if someone, like you said, if someone didn't get their head cut off, I'd be surprised. Saying that, though, I mean, even though it was a PR disaster or a nightmare, whichever word describes it best, do you think a brand should take a risk like that, trying to talk to their consumers, or is that just way out in the field?
Yeah, in a way, I almost think like the jury's out on that. I'd like to do some follow-up before saying that they really messed up, because I think the people that are lampooning the brand or making these viral videos that go against Tahoe are never in the target market to begin with. It's kind of like I'm never going to go buy a skirt, for example, partly because of my gender. And so, like, you can make a skirt ad, and if I don't like your brand or I don't like where it's made, who cares? Because I'm not in the market anyways. And I think some of the people that participated in the less enthusiastic, subversive kind of ways are not in the market for it anyways. They're riding their bicycles and taking OC Transpo. Let's not kid ourselves. And so, in a way, they may not affect the bottom line. Now, perhaps they have secondary effects. They may sort of like get those that are in the consideration set thinking of being an SUV. Maybe their conscience gets triggered a little bit. They start saying, "Geez, I didn't really think about this." Maybe they're hedging now. Maybe they are going to go and like think about a smart car. But the truth of the matter is, a smart car, you can't throw your bike in the back, and you're not going to get your whole family to the ski hill. And so I think sometimes you really have to look at who the target market is. You worry about where there's damage to your target market or where you want to expand your target market. So sometimes you get away with what might seem like being a mistake. The other thing that can happen actually is interesting too. It's like you can argue companies like American Apparel have screwed up doing these things. And more recently, I guess, we had the hurricane go through New Jersey and New York, and a lot of companies in that particular region were trying to jump on the storm bandwagon. So some companies did some things in very poor taste. It was like, stuck inside, bad rain outside, why not get your Christmas shopping done? 20% off today sort of type thing. And meanwhile, the neighbors' houses were getting washed out to sea. Now, there were a lot of I made a mini lecture, I gave this in my class. A lot of companies did some really stupid things in poor taste, but there are some brands that are stupid, and poor taste is part of their personality. And so, in a way, it's very consistent with what they're doing now. Some other companies got themselves in some trouble. Like Gap was one that was sort of caught. They sort of did it, and then they're like, "Oops, we didn't really mean this." Well, they're a mass market brand. They can't afford to do something in poor taste. Whereas other companies have a sort of a hall of fame of wonderful companies that did great things in the wake of that, trying to raise funds or trying to use some of their products to help people out in need, offering messages of sympathy, empathy. And so those are companies that are thinking long term. We're not here to exploit people and get the dollars out of their bucks. We're here to build relationships, and we're in this for the long term. And so actually that comes back to your other question, your big picture question, what is the future of branding? I think ideally, brands need to think about long-term conversations, just like you would with a friend or somebody they want to build a relationship with. It's like it comes back to the golden rule: treat other people like you want to be treated, or don't treat people like you wouldn't want to be treated. The more negative version. And I think if brands sort of adopted that mantra, that philosophy, which is very rooted in a lot of religious beliefs, they wouldn't get themselves in so much trouble. And so you don't want brands causing trouble. You want brands getting themselves in trouble. Well, maybe they just got to be more empathetic. They got to be more human. And if they did that, then we'd have more success out there, I think.
Actually, perfect. Exactly what we needed. Just the final thing I want to talk about is branding in technology, essentially gaming, mobile, beyond just storefront and traditional advertising. Do you think that because of a very high growing population that mobile advertising is really going to take off, or is that just one subset of a total brand?
Yeah, we're going to see evolutions in advertising, just like we always have. And so I think there's certainly a need to be more aware of the youthful market in terms of what their needs are. So apparently, we have a generation that sort of needs to be entertained all the time. And so, well, we see this in advertising. We see ads that are a lot more fun, a lot more humor, more storytelling involved. I don't think that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's a big step forward if you make ads fun to watch and not just boring. But also, I think you're going to see this logic be woven into mobile campaigns and into gamification, I guess. And so how do you build a relationship with people? Well, get them coming back. How do you get them to come back? Well, have something fun for them to do. Make them collect something. Let them show off something that they're proud of. And so we're seeing more companies sort of work on building relationships by sort of having little small rewards on a regular basis now. Again, you got to have anytime you look at any marketing initiative, you got to have sort of a niche mentality that works really well with certain consumers, but others could care less. And so some people, for every consumer you find that has like a Subway card, I'm trying to like save up 10 credits to get a free sub, you're going to have somebody else says, I have none of that stuff in my wallet. I want my life simple, right? Just sell me a good sub that tastes delicious. And so brands have to find a balance between that. So I think we're going to see some wonderful initiatives, so good brands that bring people together in a communal kind of way and are very Web 2.0 or the next generation of web technology type of mentality. But there's nothing wrong or there's nothing risky about old school. Like it's a decent brand and it delivers as promised. And so I think we're going to see those models sort of coexist and they'll dance back and forth between each other, I think, for a long time to come.
You said you had a wall of fame and a wall of shame. What is your favorite and least favorite brand? For what reasons?
Interesting. I'm trying to think which brands I love. It's hard to even just come up with an overall one. It's like, in a way, there's something very comforting about Coca-Cola, for example. I've always loved Coca-Cola. My guts out and it's not good for me, but Coca-Cola is refreshment, pure and simple. And when I have it on ice or it comes in a bottle, it delivers as promised. And I just love it. I love a good cold Coke. There's certain retail stores I really love. Like, I love shopping at certain stores. And honestly, it's a human side of things. I like going to places where people are friendly and people are competent. And I used to work in a store as a teenager where it was like that. It's like people went to that store because of the staff, because they knew their ski equipment inside out. They knew their camping gear inside out. They were honest. You'd never heard of anybody getting ripped off. They always left exactly with what they needed. And the company wanted to hear back from them. They wanted to know what it was like up in the Gatineau. Did they perform as you expected? And so there's certain retailers that I really enjoy and I embrace and have a great respect for. So I have my own personal list, but you can see success stories. Like Canadians love Tim Hortons. It's your everyday brand. It's your meeting place where people come together. It doesn't matter if you got a construction hat or a suit. Everybody loves Timmy's, it seems, in Canada. Likewise, Lululemon had incredible exponential growth over a very short period. It has a cult-like following. Now, I happen to be sporting a Lulu jacket today. My sister she opened the first one in Ottawa, down in Westboro, and so this was a gift from my sister once upon a time. But I know that their fans are just fanatical about the brand. They love it. They love the whole lifestyle that it portrays. And so that would be an example of a brand, I think, that's really got it together and has been listening and using the feedback to sort of build out a brand in a new way. They don't shout their brand. They don't advertise at all. They have really smart salespeople. They have all kinds of community initiatives. They were doing sustainability before it became trendy and sort of topical. And so I think a lot of that brand reflects the values of its founder. So Chip, the guy that founded the company, he had a certain worldview and he lived the brand basically. And certainly when they launched the company, the investors saw that it had value. And so it's been a stock that's performed extremely well.
Awesome. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything I needed. How is the marketing program? I'm actually looking for next September about going to either Carleton or Ottawa for marketing.
They're both good program, so I'm never going to disparage any school. I think the Telfer School is an outstanding program. This is a brand that's got great equity and is really sort of rising on the radar in terms of having really good connections. And I say this as a professor. I don't say it because I have to, but also I say it as an alumni. So I got my undergrad here
nice.
1 years ago, and I think it's a really good program, actually. And so it'd be a place worth looking into to transfer some credits and continue your studies. That being said, Carleton is a place too. You can't go wrong. More school is better.
Yeah.
It's fun for students, and you're going to get paid to do a better job if you keep going to school.
Oh, exactly. I'm on the business side of things, and I love it. Like, learning about how a consumer thinks and getting him to think my way is just the most interesting possible thing I could do in my life. So it's pretty amazing. Okay, but thank you very much for taking your time out of your day for answering some questions for us. It means the world to us. Once we're done the actual video, I believe 2 weeks from now, I'll definitely send you a copy if you'd like to see it. And
Sure that.
Yeah, check it out. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye-bye.